Welcome to another edition of the E-commerce Odyssey podcast. I'm here with Jamie Ridell from the leading international global SEO consultancy, Escaping Gravity, and we're going to talk about all things SEO. So, Jamie, could you just tell us a little bit about what Escaping Gravity does first?
Escaping Gravity is a global SEO consultancy. We keep repeating that phrase because that's what we want to rank for. We help challenger brands get to the top of Google for the terms that they want to appear for.
Okay, so in terms of, my thing about SEO, because I in the past have flogged my services as an SEO consultant, so I'd like to think I know a little bit about it, a little bit of knowledge being a dangerous thing. It seems to me, obviously, 10 years ago when I first started in e-commerce, there was, I think, far fewer ways of selling, and also, the SEO for the natural search results took up a larger proportion of the search page. Now, if you look at a search page these days, almost everything above the fold is now paid search. What do you think that, how relevant is SEO these days compared to other forms of search marketing?
I think it's still crucially relevant and still very, very important. There should never be a conversation of either or paid or organic search, because they both have a role to play. They both have benefits to a retailer, to a brand, and have some very different ways of achieving those results and cost and measurement.
Okay, so do you think, what do you see in terms of how people are spending their budget on SEO versus paid search, and what do you see and what do you think that they should do?
I see a growth towards organic search over the last 18 months. The lockdown certainly propelled the desire for organic search as well as paid search. But SEO, because I've been doing it for 20 years, is definitely faddy. Organic search was where we started. Paid search came along and that was the sexy thing and everyone threw money at that. Then paid search started to get more expensive, so organic search became more popular. Paid social then came around, and we've seen businesses built just on buying paid social activity, but that as well is starting to get more expensive. So SEO is always been relevant, it's always been valuable, it's rarely been sexy, and therefore it's always been an opportunity to do it right. We're seeing increased spend in paid in organic search. We think, of course, that clients should be spending more on organic search, but that's a biased view.
Mm-hmm. So how do you find in terms of, okay, so, to begin with, you had Frugal. That was it. The original Google shopping search, and then it went entirely paid, and now it's notionally free. Are you seeing people, what kind of effect has that had on?
It's not been a change in isolation. So it's hard to say it's a black and white change, because the argument that the real estate is decreasing for organic search on Google is kind of right if we're just looking at the linear search results. Mm-hmm. If we go back 10 years, it was some ads at the top, some ads down the bottom, and the rest was organic search.
Yeah.
Now we've got listing boxes, shopping boxes, but we've also got much more utilization of the results page. There's less white space on that page than there was 10 years ago. And that's because Google is doing its best to answer the question. Rather than give a search result, they're trying to answer the question. And that's why you see additional panels come down the right. So we've got map results, knowledge panel, we've got answer boxes, there's reviews, video links, site links, featured snippets. So the real estate of that page is actually being utilized more than ever, and there are more opportunities for an organic presence than there was potentially 10 years ago.
And I suppose it's also, we've just really been talking about desktop, haven't we? I mean, what percentage of searches are now on a mobile device?
Well, it's going to be a big percent. But then you look at the Google Search app, for example. They've now got Google Discover, where they're trying to surface relevant content before you even search. So the argument that real estate is decreasing the relevance of SEO, I don't think is totally 100% now, because more people are searching, and they're searching more in a more specific way, in a more structured way. We're seeing the rise of questions now. If we went back 20 years, it was 2-3 word answers questions at best cheap deals. Now it's going to be, what is the best thing for that? I struggle to come up with an example. It's much more specific, and Google's desperately trying to give you the answer rather than the result. But that's an opportunity for brands, if they can get it right, to have an answer box or a knowledge panel where they're seen as that trusted authority. So Google, in the main, is still not trying to own all the information, although it has got into trouble previously by trying to borrow other people's content. There was a legal case about a year ago with a lyrics website where Google was caught copying the lyrics and putting them into a Google result rather than passing them to the website.
Because of course, this thing is Australia now, where they're having to pay Rupert Murdoch lots of money. I forget the details. Seems like I don't think it's going to save the industry.
No, I think so. But so SEO, organic search, is still relevant. Look at the spikes that we had on lockdown. The spikes for dog food, dumbbells, hearing aids, batteries, everything except travel and office space went through the roof. The brands that were on page one for Google at that time will have seen massive growth in traffic and sales. But equally, if there were some lesser known brands on the page at that time, they potentially become brand names now. You just need to have dumbbells, for example. Dumbbells, you couldn't buy dumbbells for love nor money. If John's Dumbbell Incorporated was on page one for that term at the point of lockdown, whoosh, suddenly no one was looking for John's Dumbbells, but they're on the search result and they get the traffic. The challenge then comes about retaining that and growing the business. But yeah, there are still opportunities for organic search to be a kingmaker for brands.
Okay. So what I mean, okay, it seems to me, I mean, just because obviously I'm interested in retail, right? That if you do a search for a product these days, a lot of certainly the top result always seems to be Amazon.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, is it a case of, and Amazon, I don't think they need any help, really. I mean, is it the case of the Matthew effect? To those that have, much is given. What do you think that smaller retailers can do about this?
I think some terrible analogies I've used about the tanker versus the speedboat. The smaller retailers are the speedboats. They can go, they can change, and they can be quicker. Yes, you're going to have some major websites appear in the rankings, but that's not necessarily a lockout of the top 10. And we have seen, because we have built businesses that can get onto page one, we have seen that there are other strengths that these smaller retailers can play that Amazon can't necessarily have. And therefore, I think Amazon's going to be a consistent, or if it's an information search, Wikipedia is going to be a consistent. But there's still other spaces for websites to grow, and independent retailers or smaller retailers. And the smaller retailers will have some additional value that they can do, whether it's the speed of updates, the freshness of their content. Certainly with other clients that we work with, we're competing against very well-known health service establishments in this country, and we get better rankings because they are the authority, but their content is refreshed every 2 years, don't have the links, everything else. So I don't prescribe to the view that it's a lockout.
So all is not lost, is what you're saying. This is positive.
This is absolutely positive, is that there is still opportunities for, if we want another religious analogy, the David and Goliath. There's opportunities for David to be on page one.
Okay. So if you're a retailer like me, right? So we sell in my retail business. I don't even need to come with an analogy. We'll just use me. So we sell on a website and we sell on eBay, and we also sell on Amazon. And I mean, we use and we get the the stock data from our suppliers, right? So we could either, so we need to publish across these different channels. How important is it for us to try and have unique content across different channels, or not to reuse the same content, to keep the website sacred and have a separate description for that, and then not use the content elsewhere?
I think it's very important that you have unique content on each channel. Certainly, if we look at your website, we know that some of the copy, sometimes it has just been taken as the approved copy from the brand. And if you go
that is unfortunately the case.
If you go to the brand site, it's the same copy. So, and the challenge, if we're talking about specific brands, is that brand will own the domain name and the authority, in Google's eyes, of that area, of that product. So there is a challenge there. The way I look at it is that we take some content and use it almost like a stock. So the key messages have to be presented on each of the sales channels. But how the stock is then presented, how the copy is then presented, should vary between sales channels, taking into account the user expectation or life cycle of their shopping behavior. So if they come to your website, that's going to be different to if they see your product on eBay or if they see it on Amazon. We still need the key themes about your brand and about the brand that you're stocking and the product details. But variation and personalization is going to be crucial.
Okay. And where do you stand on, so variation listings where you have a drop down?
Yeah.
Right. So obviously that's good from the point of view that you have a single page, it's a good user experience. You have a single page, you're not duplicating the content in multiple places. But on the flip side, they're hard to set up and they're hard to maintain. And in my experience, they cause indexing problems. And so we decided to stop using them because they were just, it's just a struggle, right? And we don't sell clothing. I think they're probably really important for clothing, which we don't sell. What is your view on variations?
Variations clearly need to be part of the mix for the consumer's interest and purchase behavior. How that is presented is the $1 million question. As you rightly point out, these drop downs, these user variations, ID variations, can confuse Google very much to think there's potential page duplication, or even worst case, we have seen examples where it becomes a spider trap, is that Google keeps on following what it thinks is a new link, but actually it's not. It's just a different variation of a different variation of a different variation. So you're getting a wilderness of mirrors almost. Time needs to be spent on site structure, on canonicalization, on how we present this content. And it's not just an SEO consideration. It needs to be part with the UX designers, possibly a conversation with the CRO activities if you want to improve the overall conversion rate. And therefore, some of the most heated discussions we have are around areas of navigation and filtering, because so many elements have to be in place to get it absolutely right.
Okay. So moving on to kind of the money, as it were. What do you think? Do you think that SEO should aim to have a better return on investment than other forms of, paid search engine marketing?
Yes, but I think it's
because it is notionally free after all. Whatever that means.
There's an analogy I'll give you offline about.
Okay, I look forward to that.
So if you stumble upon good SEO and you've not invested in it, then great, well done, carry on. I've met brands who said, well, we make a few million from organic search and we haven't done anything, so why do we need to invest? That's one viewpoint. Another viewpoint was said, well, what could you make 10 million if you just put a bit of investment in? So yeah, that's one viewpoint. Paid search versus organic search, yeah, they're both search, but they're usually different charging models. Paid search, if you put £1 into paid search and SEO today, your paid search is going to give you a better return because you can have a result tonight.
Yeah.
SEO is going to take a bit longer to achieve. That said, if you stopped spending your whole £1 today, no more sales.
Mm.
The fundamental changes you could have done with your SEO may deliver you returns for the next 3 months.
Yeah.
So then it becomes, well, how are we measuring the actual ROI of SEO? And then the other challenge is that in my business, we base the costs on our consultancy rates and the number of hours we think we should be investing in the project every month. So if that cost stayed the same, 10 hours worth of consultancy, for me to sell Haribo's at 99p or to sell financial services at £10,000 a pop, it's the same hours for me,
Yeah.
but otherwise potentially so much higher. So it's never an easy question to answer because there are so many variables.
Yeah, I could see that. I know it's an impossible question, isn't it? Really. So
it doesn't stop you asking.
You know, what do you? Okay, so links, right?
Yeah.
It seems to me that people aren't. You know, it seems to be a few years ago when I was doing this that links were. You know, it's important to get as many links as possible. And I've been working with you guys, and you don't. You know, put words in your mouth. Seem to put less emphasis on it. Where do you think how important are links these days?
Links, like any other elements of SEO, are just part of the mix.
Mm-hmm.
Getting great links only, or getting great content only, is neither is a silver bullet. But personally, I don't think links are that important. I've got brands to the top of Google that don't have as many links as others. And it's therefore every other element of the overall optimization that's making an impact. I know from speaking to other clients that link building, as it is, can be quite a work intensive and therefore cost intensive part of the SEO project, but with potentially low returns. So from our perspective, and only from our perspective, we don't think it's as important or should be as big an investment as other people suggest. Mm-hmm. There was an update from Google a month or two ago that said something like that. I'm not putting words in their mouth for sure. That links is just part of it. I would rather focus on great content, A, to appeal to Google, B, for link encouragement. Wikipedia doesn't go out and ask for links, but instead they become the trusted source. So we all link to Wikipedia, so Wikipedia goes to the top.
So you think you're basically classical of link bait, or link bait is probably a bit,
dangerous.
Dangerous word.
Good, useful content. So you see this rise in questions, and we saw this even more so with lockdown. How to do weights at home, how to measure your ring size, how to measure your shoe size at home. Mm-hmm. Give someone useful information, and there's a better chance of them linking to you because it's engaging, because it's interesting, or because you've got a unique insight. We both share a passion for music. I have a personal blog, winetravelandsong.com, where I've written some stuff about Hotel California or Salisbury Hill. Where is Salisbury Hill? It's outside Bath. People will now link to that because they've read it and thought, didn't know that. That's interesting. I want to share that.
Salisbury Hill. So where's that?
Salisbury Hill is 2 or 3 miles outside Bath.
Okay, we'll talk about that in a minute. What do you think? Okay, so I think one of the disadvantages of the SEO industry is because obviously Google, it tells you Google doesn't publish its algorithm, right? So to a certain extent, it's quite hard to know who's, some people claim to have more knowledge than others, but it's obviously, quite hard to, well, maybe no one does. I don't know. I mean, what do you think about, people the claims that people make? What would you advise people against?
Well, I think it starts with the proof is in the pudding, and our pudding is how much money we've made our clients in additional revenue. So that's what we set our stall as, and saying, look, you're investing in us. It is an investment, and we need to make you a return. Equally, there are a lot of gurus out there that will spend most of the time on a soapbox telling you that this is what you need to think about, and this is the strategy that's really going to work. I prefer not to tell people our strategies because A, that's what we get paid for, and B, that everyone is different and everyone has a different opinion. So to have experts, or to be perceived as the expert, really has to come down to your approach and how you present that. And for us, we know as a consultancy working on many clients across many territories that we can see things that work and don't work, and we can see things that work that aren't in the guidebooks, and we can see some things like links that other people put great weight against that we don't. So beware of someone bearing gifts or bearing expertise, because some of it might be what they read yesterday on Google.
Well, it's very easy to read things and just go, this is how you do it. And
equally, there is a value issue with SEO. You've already flagged jokingly that it is kind of free, and therefore there's this expectation that someone's going to do it for 100 quid, and if they're going to do it for 100 quid, then they probably did read it on Google yesterday.
I don't know. Do you know what I'm wary of people who say things are easy, or that they can make a really big difference really quickly, because do you know, if it was easy, I'd have done it already. That's my...
Absolutely. Some of what we do in SEO is really difficult. Some of it's really dull and repetitive.
Some of everything is very dull.
I know, but it's not the sexy Facebook ads where you get beautiful imagery and, that we're the gritty end of the marketing place. And that's absolutely fine. I'm very happy to be here.
Yeah.
But it's just, SEO is not always trendy. It has the potential to be a fantastic return, but it needs graft and knowledge and expertise.
So actually, moving on to things which aren't particularly sexy, core web metrics.
Core web vitals.
Core web vitals, thank you. One of the things that I've found the most difficult in the last few years is the speed of the website, in knowing what it because it's very easy to run, particularly retail websites are quite big beasts. They've got loads of products and whatever, and they're quite slow. It's quite easy to run them against the Google web speed tests and conclude that they're very slow, and then have loads of people offering to take loads of your money and speed it up. How important do you think web speed is, and also these core web vitals in the algorithm?
Sure. Page speed, like links, has been a measure for some time. I've got clients at the top of Google that are much slower than places around them. So it is just one element of the overall experience. When we start to measure some of these speeds, we're talking milliseconds. Like, Google can understand and measure milliseconds, but the consumer can't. So there's got to be some sort of basic cutoff where you look at the site and say, it's too blinking slow to load, I'm going to go somewhere else. And that might be a second, it might be a second and a half, depending on if the bus is coming or not. But in the main, most of the speed changes that we can see are imperceptible to the consumer. So it's not something we need to worry about. Obviously, Google's done research that says the quicker the site, the more money you're going to make. Yes, that's fine, because it's also going to speed up the processing that Google needs to do, and so on and so forth. So it's, I'd like a faster website, but it's not the only thing that's going to improve or hinder your organic search. Core Web Vitals is potentially slightly different, because with Google never telling you what's going on with their algorithm, for them to come out and say, we're going to do this and it's going to happen in June and we're going to have a dedicated score in Google Search Console, we really should pay attention. However, they have also said it's going to be a potential deciding factor, not a ranking factor. So if we ever got to the point there are two products, two brands, exactly the same overall score from Google, and one's passed Web Vitals and one hasn't, then it might be the deciding factor, like a tiebreak.
Nice.
There are also so many websites that don't yet pass Core Web Vitals. That might be maybe why Google's put it back, the rollout's put back from May to June. There may be so many that don't pass that they've actually said it can't be a major ranking factor. So
it's more of an aspiration than a.
Yeah, I want to, because Google's making a big fuss about it. I want to ensure that all my clients pass Core Web Vitals. It's good, good practice. Do I think the world's going to turn upside down as soon as they release Core Web Vitals, and we're going to see a change in the ranking orders? I don't expect wholesale change. I would be daft not to say there may be some changes, but I don't think it's the silver bullet.
So you see, undoubtedly, some people will see a big difference and others not.
Yeah, but we've had so many changes. There were algorithm changes that came after lockdown, because there was a big algorithm change just after lockdown because consumer behavior changed overnight. And Google had to address some uses of phrases that we didn't have 2 years ago: COVID and lockdown and
furlough.
Yeah, furlough. And others, taking advantage of the at-home phrase. Suddenly everything was at home. How to measure at home, how to exercise at home, how to, whatever else. So there's always changes. And Google's always said, if you play by the rules and you're not trying to kid anyone, you're not going to have a problem. We've rarely had problems. We've not had any big problems, certainly, because we are still trying to do the right thing for Google and for the consumer. Sometimes SEO can forget there's a consumer at the other end of this, and we're trying to engage them to buy more stuff.
Okay. Right, last question, Jamie. What has inspired you recently?
So one of the concepts of escaping gravity was that in order to succeed and to escape gravity, you've got to get over what's holding you back. When we launched our first business in 1999, we'd moved out to a small cottage in Suffolk. There was no broadband in the village. They had to dig up the village so I had internet. My daughter was on her way. I was still working in London, commuting 5 hours a day before we had mobile phones and half-decent laptops. So that was what was holding me back, and I had to get past that to escape gravity, to grow. So the concept of escaping gravity we used for this business to help. I've always kept in touch with my old university. I didn't do well at university. That's my fault, not theirs. And we spoke to the university, this is Queen Margaret University in Edinburgh, and said, right, if we gave you a small donation, what could you do with it? And they came up with the concept of the Escaping Gravity Entrepreneurship Competition. The short version is that we put a small pot of £5,000 into the university. They ran a competition with their business network to say any business in our network of over 2,000 businesses can pitch to get a grant of £1,000, not a loan, just a grant, to use some digital or technology to improve your business. So 2 weeks ago, we went through 30 submissions where these businesses pitched for 60 seconds YouTube videos and said what they did with their business and what they wanted to do with the money and how that would help. And it ranged from podcast producers that just needed a new microphone so they can do some more stuff. There was a virtual drum tuition that needed a VR rig to just go from an idea to actually doing something to sell. And then we saw an amazing thing called the Cambulance, or Cambulance down here. Someone has created, they've bought an ambulance and they're going to take it to disadvantaged areas, and it's kitted out with arts and crafts so that the kids can come in and just spend an hour or two drawing and colouring and everything else. Their request for £1,000 was to get an iPad and a pencil and access to some creative tools so that they can help the kids not only do digital creative stuff, but potentially get their hands on some technology they wouldn't normally get. So it's just £5,000. With the 5 winners, we saw 30 odd entrants, and it was properly inspirational. We were in tears of laughter. We were in tears about some of the stories, but equally really inspired. If you look at what I was doing,
there's some good things that can be achieved for relatively not that much money.
It's escaping gravity. It's taken them to the next level. For them to say, with £1,000, which I don't have right now, I can get this 3D camera so I can film the drum lessons. And if I can film the drum lessons, I've got something to sell. So that was inspiring to see that we can help them on the next step. This is not the whole thing. It's just the next step. It just how do we accelerate that quicker?
I'm feeling even inspired just hearing about this. I'm
It's,
going to have a look.
it's fabulous. And just watching the videos, you think, what was I like at 21, 22? I wouldn't have been able to do anything like that. So, massive pride in doing that. And that was really inspirational. There's still some good ideas out there and good people.
Cool. Jamie, it's been great talking to you. And maybe we'll talk again in the future, I hope.
That'd be cool. Thank you.
Okay.